Cool. Hello, everyone. Today I'll be talking about a couple of small things and one biggerish thing that we did. Um, I'm gonna start with a couple of small updates for the concepts graph, and you can see we have a light mode now, and things are just a little bit more easy to see as well because when we filter in the slider graph here between the high level and the more detailed view, we also filter out the table here, so it's just a little bit easy to see what's going on. And there's also, let me bring them all. We're doing a bit of a better job at hiding the ones that are in the back. They get smaller, they fade out more quickly, and the ones that are in the front are guaranteed to have like this black background, so they're easier to read. So a couple of improvements to make this easier to read and look at in general. Just wanted to mention that before I go into what we actually shipped that I think is a bigger deal. And that's many improvements to creating views and managing like the filtering of views. So last week I showed the UI for like creating new views. There were a lot of problems with it, and you weren't able to edit or delete views. All of those were implemented, and things should be much easier for people to do. So I'm just gonna go ahead and show you the new UI for filtering, and I'm gonna go into the assets tab so we can see the assets filtering. And you can see now the experience is slightly different, or very different. Where previously you could only choose one label and then you had the or and then another label and then or and and. Um, and now it's a little bit of more of a streamlined experience where you can select multiple filters, labels at once, and then based on this button here that you can toggle between or and, you can choose which ones to filter. So let me just choose two. And there's more natural language here, like include any of these two labels. So now we'll get the assets that have any of those two labels. And when we try to include all of them, I don't have any assets with all of those, well, both the labels on them. And also adding multiple of these filters unlocks this extra button that toggles essentially an or an and between all of the filters you have here. So if I had like, 5, 6 filters here, you can either match any of these. So when one of these is true, the asset is gonna appear there, or match all of them. So all of these have to be matching for the assets to appear. Based on the filter you have active, if you're in all knowledge, you're gonna have these options. You can either clear the filters or you can save them as a view. I'm just gonna save these as a view here, and I'm just gonna say testing one and creates the view. And then when you're in a view, you have a few more options unlocked here. There's this save button, and now you have the option to save changes you make to a view. So for example, if I want to add another filter, I can save that to the testing view, or I can create a new view from the changes I just made to the view. You also can now edit the views. So if I want to call it testing whatever, I can do that. I can also change the filters, and you can delete views. I also want to talk real quick before we go into feedback on something that's not yet on prod. What I just showed was in production, something that I'm working and I'm hoping to release later today. That's why I'm showing is some extra improvements to the filters where Grant, one of our users, uh, wanted to be able to exclude labels, essentially do like not filtering. And we'll now have the option to also exclude labels that have filters. Let me remove all the filters here just so we can see all the labels we have. So for example, I have these with the planets and the rest have customers. So then I can go in here and now I'm filtering for customers, but then I can go and exclude the customers label. So now I'm only talking to all the other assets that are not related to customers. I can also do multiple labels here. And I have two options. So you can do exclude if any of. So we're going to exclude assets if any of the assets have any of these two labels, or we can exclude the assets that have both of these labels. And to make it a bit more clear, I know it's maybe a bit hard to wrap your head around, but for example, these two files have these two labels on them. So then if I exclude if all of these two labels, then it's going to exclude those two files because those are the only ones that have both labels. And then if I do any, it's going to get rid of the planets, the assets that only had the planets because it's matching any of these. So they're essentially the opposite of these two for including. Then I can exclude everything and yep. That's everything that's new around views, and I will let you guys know when it's ready to be on production.